God. Oh, Lord. So are you guys like going back to school? You guys are in class.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you're at home right now, but I mean, like, you guys like can go back to school.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, most of them are like online right now, but I'm a fashion major, so like we're all in person. Well, half of my class
Okay.
is in person, so I think it depends on the major.
Right. Okay.
A lot of our construction classes are still in person too, which is pretty cool.
We'll get started in like 3 minutes.
What time is it over there right now?
It's 8 p.m. I'm 9 hours ahead of you guys. I'm in the future.
Literally in the future. So cool.
What tomorrow brings.
I'll let you guys know. Yeah, a little bit ahead. So is everyone on this chat like they're majoring in fashion, or they're just like interested in fashion?
They're just interested. Like our club is open to everybody on campus. Yeah, like we're primarily business majors though, and we're based in the business school, but like I'm a fashion major, so like I'm already in the business school, but yeah.
It's called like W.P. Carey.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That's funny.
That's funny that she knows that.
My dad went to ASU.
My goodness.
Represent.
My dad went to ASU, and he played football. He was like the captain of the football team. He played for Frank Kush. And my dad also coached at ASU.
So crazy.
Yeah. And actually, my brother currently attends ASU.
That's tight.
Yeah. I think like every Saturday, my whole entire youth, until I was 17 years old, I went to an ASU football game. Well, during the season.
Wow, that's more than me. I've only been like twice.
My dad had like this like suite. I think it's like alumni used to coach thing. So like he would get in this box, and there was like always food, and him and all his friends would go every Saturday, and me and my brother would like always go because it was so fun. We're like, oh, like college kids. Yeah. Actually, I was looking through like these photos of me as a child, like a baby, and there's like this picture of me like sitting on like Sparky's like shoulder, and my dad's like wearing his like little outfit, and he's like holding his football helmet.
I'm terrified of Sparky. That is the scariest mascot I've ever seen.
I know. My face was like, oh my God, what is happening? Yeah, so I'm very familiar with ASU.
Okay, I think we should get started. I'm gonna do some announcements real quick. So next week we are gonna be joined by Jeff, who is one of the co-founders of High Society. That meeting is gonna be our normal time. That's gonna be Wednesday at 7. And then also our member dues are due Wednesday, that same Wednesday. And just as a refresher, the due payments are $20 for a semester and then $30 for the year. So you can choose either one. Let's see if someone can put that in the chat. 1 second. You can go to our website and go to the members tab, and I'll put the website in the chat box. And then it should also have been in the email newsletter. So yeah, I think that's about it. And then the format for this meeting today, we are joined by the lovely Madisen. She's the creative director of Rasche. And we're We're gonna do like a Q&A style discussion for about the first 45 minutes and then leave 15 minutes at the end for questions. Perfect. So you ready?
No.
Great. Okay. So yeah, so we just love that Trey Rasche focuses on androgyny, and we're just in a time of really great transformation in how the world views gender, as well as the industry. So how would you say it's affected your brand to be genderless?
Well, so first, like, I think androgyny is like a super interesting word. And I want to talk about androgyny a little bit. Because I actually prefer to use a different word, which is non-binary. And I prefer to use non-binary because it encompasses like the full spectrum of gender identities. So, you know, masculinity, femininity, and everything in between, right? So it's like not exclusive to like masculinity and femininity. And I've chosen this word for like a very specific reason. And it's because it allows like the user of the word to have full access to like the full circle of human qualities, whether that be, like I said, masculinity, femininity, or anything in between. And I like, androgyny is like, I used to like love this word, and it's not that I don't like it, it's that, like, I love the definition, right? Like, androgyny is the combination of masculine and feminine traits to create an ambiguous form. And that's like super interesting. But when it's used in real life, like, it doesn't seem to have that same effect. Like, when you look at androgyny in fashion, it's like a Helmut Newton photo of like a like sexy woman in like a blazer with like no bra and like a top hat and red lipstick. So I don't know. I think that androgyny, I like this word, but I don't think it's used right. So we don't use it. But like back to the question. I do think that the current cultural like gender transformation has totally helped my brand exist. I don't think it would be possible for Trey Rasche, like it wouldn't be possible or popular before now. Like in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe a little bit in the 90s, a little bit in the 2000s maybe. And now it's like, there's definitely an opportunity for this to exist. And I believe that like non-binary brands really do work today, and they're gonna work even more in the future because like the present and the future is fluid, you know, and like this is the largest group of people, I think, to date, that understand that gender roles are social constructs that identify like on the like spectrum, you know, that weave in and out of like different gender identities. So it's like, I feel like that the future generations are only going to understand this like even further than we do. And we won't have like so many, like it won't just be like masculinity and femininity that are like the regular, you know, gender norms. So, so yeah, like I think that now is like totally the right time. And I think the future will be like even better.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like going off of that, would you say you're a part of the industry shift as a whole that's going towards gender nonconformity? Or would you say that you're a part of a group that's kind of going against the grain?
I think I would love to say that like as an industry we're moving towards this like together, but I like we aren't right now. So I would say that we're definitely like swimming against the tide. We're definitely going against it because, you know, there's only a few brands like off the top of my head I can like think of two that, you know, truly represent non-binary, and that's like part of their ethos. And I think a big reason for this is like B2B, like brand to retailer, brand to business, they're not set up for like a non-binary unisex like system. Like they don't, there's no sell-ins that work like that. Like it's just, it doesn't work in retail yet because nobody is trying to like make it work. You know, it's like you're either like in the men's section or the women's section.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the back end systems that they have like are set up for that. So yeah, we're definitely swimming against the tide. I mean, that's why I don't do a lot of retail. That's why Rasche is D2C, like we're direct to consumer, because retailers really want to sort of put us only in women's wear or like only in men's wear. Like, you know, they like don't want it to exist in both sides, or they don't want to like make a new section, or, you know, so
Yeah.
I wish the answer was different, but.
No, that makes sense. And I think some brands are definitely going to be like afraid to go in that direction because there aren't as many guidelines and, you know, like there's not a construct exactly that people can follow to go into that industry. So like the whole design process would be different. The whole marketing process is different. Everything is different. So that totally makes sense. So yeah, so just maybe how about you explain a little bit about your design process when designing to fit non-binary bodies?
Okay, such a big question. Okay, I'm gonna expand on this question a bit and then like come back to it. So I think it's really important to like understand a few things about like this non-binary concept, to understand like, so before I explain the design process, I'm just gonna like run you guys through a few things. Like, so I think it's really important here to like state that, you know, sex is different than gender. Sex refers to like your biological attributes, you know, in humans and animals. So it's physical features, it's chromosomes, it's genes, it's reproductive anatomy. It's like, you know, sperm went to the egg, it made you. You had no choice in that. You popped out, you got what you got. Ça va. While gender, you know, this refers to like socially constructed roles, behaviors, expressions, identities, you know, of us. So it's more like energy, you know. So you can kind of already see this big difference. It's like sex, it's biological anatomy, and then you have like gender, it's energy. So now, like, I think the best thing to sort of talk about is like what these different gender energies are. I mean, there's a huge spectrum of them. So like we could talk about this for a really long time, but I think that it's best to just start with the two most mainstream ones, which is masculinity and femininity. And essentially, like, they're not the same. Like, I think this is really important. Like, when people are like, men and women are the same, like, I'm like not here to say that, because like our bodies are super different and the energies are super different. But what I'm here to say is that you don't have to choose, like just because you have like a male anatomy doesn't mean that you only have masculine energy. So let me sort of walk you guys through that a little bit more. Like feminine energy is categorized as creative and like sort of random. And masculine energy is categorized as focused. So neither one is greater or weaker. You need both. And both of them are like super powerful. And like, maybe I can break it down a little bit more. Femininity is like, or the female energy is like, you know, it's like the land of possibilities. It's like creative potential. It's emotional. It's flowing. It's by flowing, I mean going with the flow. It's affecting the universe from like inside you. It's like these sort of like ideas. Where masculinity, masculine energy, it's like it's super focused, and this energy takes direct roads from like A to B. Okay, and it's like it's really like strong energy in a certain direction to get to a point, and it's linear. It's like whoosh, while female energy is a bit more like this. Okay. So like I think a good example of these, just to like go a little bit deeper, is like if you get a promotion from working the hardest, that's like a masculine energy. You get a promotion for having the best idea, that's like a feminine energy. Or like when you cook, it's like you always just follow the recipe, like me. This is a masculine energy. Or you're cooking and you're like you know the recipe, but you know you're going with what you feel. Like I feel like it needs a little bit more of this, and you're like I'm gonna try some of that. That's like a feminine energy. Okay. So I think to help further this point, like everyone can just like take a second to think about throughout their day. Think of a regular day. You wake up, brush your teeth, take a shower, eat, go to school, you drive, see your friends, whatever. Which energies like do you use to do certain things, you know? Like for me, when I'm like really like having to deal with operations of my business, I'm like really in like my masculine energy. And to be honest, like I tap into my masculine energy a lot more. I am like sort of like a bulldozer. I'm like getting to where I need to go. Like, but then like on my design days, I'm like, you know, I'm like so like I'm flowing, I'm like moving, like I'm just going everywhere. And I'm like really into my feminine energy. So it's a lot to unpack right there, but you know, think about it, guys. You know, think about like when you're tapping into which one, and think about like maybe you have another energy that's like different. So this is like a really important thing to understand when you're talking about like non-binary in fashion, well, in general, but in fashion, okay? Because like we need to understand, sorry, my dog wants to get down. We need to understand that like we are like a yin and yang. It's like, you know, you have both of these energies. You need the duality. The duality is super important inside of all of us. And I think like sometimes when we see like so much crazy stuff happening in the world, it's like, because it's very like, there's a lot of masculine energy, you know, because female energy is a lot more about harmony, right? Okay, so now that we've sort of gone over the fact that like non-binary for Trey Rasche, it's about like the fact that your anatomy does not and should not affect your energy, okay? So my whole like, you know, design process, like I'm not forgetting about human anatomy. Like I know that like a crotch has to be longer on a men's pant. Like, of course, like there needs to be space there, period. The anatomy is different, period. And I have to pay like really special attention to certain details. I have to do extensive fittings. It's like, it's somewhat more complicated, you know, like not like crazy more complicated, but you have to really think through a product in like a 360 way. And it has to be like deeply like multifunctional, you know? So the design process is a lot about like designing to fit all kinds of bodies, right? Like that's like the technical side of it. But really the design process for us, like the point of non-binary fashion is like to ask these important questions. Like, why does someone who identifies as a man feel like they can't wear a purse? You know, like these are the big questions for us. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, you can like any man can put on a woman's item. Any woman can put on a man's item. But it's like these larger constructs that we're questioning. Like why is like gender constructs restricting fashion that's supposed to be about self-expression, you know? So I think that that's like the most important part for us in the design process, is to really like make sure that we're asking these questions, and we're asking our community, and we're asking the consumer these questions too. So I hope I answered that. That was a bit like,
You did. I think that that's a great point, especially about, you know, harnessing different energies. And I like what you said about the two can coexist and they're not the same. I think that something to think about in terms of masculine and feminine energy is kind of feminine is almost lunar energy, while masculine energy is solar, and you have both. So yeah, I learned that one of my classes.
And you need them both. Like you really need both of those things, right?
I know
one cannot work without the other.
Exactly. I know I shop in the men's section all the time, and when I wear masculine clothing, totally different energy. So yeah,
like you can pick. Like you really can pick, and like you need them in different situations, you know. And like my whole life, I have had such like my dominant energy is like very masculine, you know, like whatever.
Yeah, and it's normal, it's human, and I think many people are starting to see that. And what I love about your brand is that I feel like you are very good at harnessing both energies in one style, and that's sick. So, kind of moving on and like talking about more breaking gender roles and stereotypes. So, the fashion industry, it's perceived to be really, women run, heavily women centric. So, despite the fact that a lot of major fashion houses are run by men.
Mm.
So, do you feel that this is a disservice to women?
I think that, yeah, the major fashion houses are currently owned, operated, and designed by predominantly a certain group of people. And, excuse me, and I think it's a disservice, not just to women, but to a lot of people. So my answer is yes, like absolutely, for women, for a lot of people. And if we want to be specific about women, like I think an interesting thing to think about is how the woman has always been the muse, but not the mind, you know?
Mhm.
So, but yeah, my answer is yes.
Agreed. um, so then, how has being a woman affected your success in the industry? And then, have you ever faced discrimination regarding your gender in fashion?
Yeah, this is such a like dynamic question. Again, gonna be like a real like oh, till we get to the point on this one, I think. Um, so I feel like just to start, I think it's important to say that there's a bunch of conversations to have about discrimination in the fashion industry and like diversity in the fashion industry and like gender equality. This is like a huge, huge conversation. And like just to like talk about like something that really needs like just to quickly touch like something that really needs to be worked on in the fashion industry, and then something that's like wow, like fashion industry is like done well. I would say that like there's a huge difference between the creative teams and the people making decisions versus like the people you see in the campaigns or on the runway. And it's like kind of a trick, I think. You know, it's like, oh, like look, like we have this like amazing like casting, like this is what we represent, and then in the office it like doesn't match at all. And we saw that a few times this year with some big, big brands that are great, like great brands, but like, you know, there's a disconnect happening there. Um, so that's like something that I think really needs to be worked on, and something that's really important to me, and something that I think that I can change, or that I do, and I do change within my small team. It's a small team, but you know. Um, and then something I think the fashion industry has done really well that I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Is like you think about like hair and makeup artists maybe 30, 40 years ago, say 1950s, 60s, 70s, were there men doing glam, you know? Were there male makeup artists and male hairstylists and male nail artists? Like, no, I really don't think so. It was like, and if you did do it, it was just like, you know? So that's like a really great thing that fashion has done. Like some of the top glam people are men. So like there's good and there's bad. And and I think that there's a lot of stuff that you know fashion really needs to improve on, and there's some good things that they have or that we have done. But back to like my personal experience, like I mean, I think it would be naive for me to say that I have not like faced adversity in this industry due to being a woman. Even just at the beginning of this year, I had like situation with a big men's like media outlet that ran an article on us, and they were like, you know, like don't get used to this, like you're a woman's brand and like you're a woman and like we only do men's stuff, you know, like that I face that all the time, you know. This is like just so regular for me at this point. I'm like, okay, you don't get it, I guess. But but I feel like a lot of us can relate to this, that like yeah, like we're like a lot of us face adversity in the fashion industry, whether it's because like you're a woman, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, your race, your citizenship, like all these things. So I think a great way or a positive way to view this, which I personally do, I didn't always do this, is like, you know, past few years, I've really shifted my view on this, is that like, I look at being a woman in the fashion industry as like, I have fuel and I have power and I have like, purpose, you know, like I want to break down these walls. I want to be a part of the change that I want to see in fashion, you know, to no longer see gender, for creative teams to be as diverse as the models on the runway, for brands to be sustainable, you know, like, and if I maybe didn't have, you know, challenges, maybe I'm like, oh, everything's fine, you know? So I think that like if there's a hurdle I think you can flip it and you can make it an opportunity. So I think that's like the best way to sort of look at this in whatever adversity people are facing.
Yeah. I think one of the like reasons that this topic was kind of brought up is that I feel like the fashion industry was one of those few industries that was dominated by women, and it's slowly becoming a more male dominant industry. I think especially with the rise of streetwear, because streetwear is very masculine. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's starting to kind of become one of those industries that's run by men. So I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that, because I think it's kind of an interesting idea to think about.
Yeah.
So the gender equality movement has kind of concluded that gender is a social construct, and the fashion industry as a whole is very category based. So how do you conceptualize other aspects of the industry shifting to kind of be more fluid and inclusive?
But like, so not in the gender section, in other sections.
Like outside of like being.
Yeah. Well, wow, there's like so many. Maybe I'll just tell you one that like I sort of touched on earlier that is like really important to me, is making sure that I have a really well-rounded team. Like everyone has to be different, you know, because like I have to make sure that my brand gives a voice to everyone. So I have to make sure that there's everyone's voice is included in the creation. So I think that's something that we need to see happen immediately in all brands, especially big brands, like, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's something that I can do. So that's something that I do. And I think is like first thing that needs to happen, like immediately.
Yeah. The fashion industry, it is often criticized for being kind of, by outside industries for being kind of shallow, very appearance obsessed with. How do you kind of retaliate against this false narrative as a strong woman running a successful business?
Well, I don't think it's like fully a false narrative. You know, I think that there is a large section of this industry that is shallow. You know, there's a lot of vanity in fashion, you know, and I can't deny that. So that's the thing. But on the other hand, there are a lot of very smart people in this industry that want to tell great stories, that want to make products better, more functional. They're great designers, they're great artists. They think creatively, they're critical thinkers. Like, you know, I think it's maybe like 50-50, you know? And I think the people who actually are creating great things, like they're not on the shallow side, you know, obviously. But I think that the way that I retaliate against it would be just that, you know, I'm building a business that is somewhat anti-fashion, I guess. I like woke up the other day and I was like talking to my business partner and I was like, I'm like, really kind of anti-fashion. Like we kind of are. Like we really go against the grain on like everything. We like do not fit in the system at all. So I think that's how I retaliate, you know? It's like we want to like everything's overly exclusive, like not into that. Like, you know, everyone like pays people to like pretend like they like stuff, like their brand. Not into that, like at all. We've never done that. Like I've never ever like done that. Like you like it, like send it to you and you like it, you wear it. Like there's no like transaction to like make people think that you like our brand and you don't. No, you know. I don't know. Like we're interested in like creating products that are good for the environment. Like we're just doing things differently, and that's actually all that I can do really, is build something that is different, and then I can share this knowledge with people so that other people, because it's like hard to do it like this, like even to be sustainable. I'm like, this is so hard. There is so little information, you know. It took me like so long to just find my first like sustainable fabric supplier, you know, and then the minimums are crazy because nobody's doing it. It's so complicated. And then it's like everyone's so like, oh, like I don't tell people where I get my fabric. Like no, like me and my friends, like me and my friend who owns Daily Paper, like we're constantly like sharing like, you know, what we're learning to help each other. Like, you know, I mean, he's probably teaching me more than I'm teaching him, but he's been in the game a bit longer. But yeah, so I guess that's what we're doing.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the future in fashion. People are starting to see and like just see when brands are not being authentic, and people are craving authenticity. So I think that in order for a brand to be successful, they're going to have some sort of impactful cultural message behind their whole idea. So like, you know, I think thinking of the difference between Victoria's Secret and Savage, like Savage is doing so great. They're breaking every single stereotype, and they have found what people are craving in terms of body positivity, body image, inclusivity, gender inclusivity, literally everything. Whereas Victoria's Secret was kind of stuck in their old ways. And so Victoria's
I grew up in the Victoria's Secret, like,
yeah,
you know, era, like really like in the prime, like living in Phoenix, Victoria's Secret, like, you know, and you know, you would just look at these women who like are so beautiful, and you would go there and you'd be like, wow, like I don't look like this. Like, what am I supposed to buy here? You know, I don't know. It, you know, and that's like a big part of like what like Rasche is doing too. Like, this is like what we care about. Like, we don't want to like, you know, only pick like one model and this is our demographic and this size. It's like, no, like what? Like, why? Who ever thought that was gonna work?
It's so out of touch, and I think
great way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the industry has just totally changed, and I think it's moving away from that kind of shallow perspective. So moving on. So Jacques Mus just showcased women's clothing as a part of his menswear collection, and I think a lot of brands are doing that in the men's fashion week. The collection was still pretty gendered, but he was praised for this decision. So what are your opinions on this?
Yeah, it's definitely like not a new idea, you know, since the first time I went to Paris Fashion Week, like, I don't know, 6 years ago, this was like something that happened like at men's. Doesn't happen in really that much in women's, but it always happens in men's, and I love it. I've always loved it, because I think that obviously I think that like there's only be one show, but I also think this is like important because like it is so hard for brands to keep up with this like fashion week calendar and like the retail buying schedule. Like, it is so hard, from like the shows to like, you know, making sure that like your fall winter like arrives, you know, at the retailer in June. Like, it's just like, I don't know, this really needs to change, and I thought it was going to change, and then it like didn't. So I'm still hoping that it does change, because, you know, during the pandemic there was a lot of talk, and then it was like, no.
I thought it did change. That's crazy.
No, it hasn't changed. But yeah, I like love this. And I think also as like a small business, this is super important because like it's too expensive. Like, shows are like so expensive, you know? And Jacques Mus, even though it's a super successful brand, it's like a 10-year-old brand. Like, this is still a new brand in like, you know, when you look at like the large conglomerates that are like 100 years old, like Jacques Mus is still new. And like, this is really smart, financially, as well as like just creatively. So yes, Jacques Mus.
So then, so Très Riche, you guys kind of advertise yourself as providing an alternative dichotomy on men's and women's fashion. So does this affect your showcasing of collections or your like business to business connections just in a gender-centric industry? You did touch on this a little bit.
Yeah. Like 100%, like absolutely. Like, yes, like this is why like we don't really do retail at the moment, like meaning like with like retailers, and like it's just online, because yeah, it's, you know, like that's I think that there's a lot of things changing. Like, initially when Reebok approached me in 2018, this is like the email they sent me was like, we are interested in this like unisex non-binary space, and it was so cool. I was like, okay, you know, so this is going to change. And it's really interesting to like see the evolution, you know? from when I started this brand and everyone was like, hype, exclusive. There is a huge, huge shift right now.
That's true. You started the brand kind of before people were really talking about non-binary fashion. So that must have been very difficult in the beginning. I think as the industry is shifting, I think there's going to be way more opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was in college, it was in 2013, 14, 15. I was working on this idea for a unisex jewelry line. And my first shoot it was like literally Trey Rasche, but it was jewelry. Like we did a shoot that was like all genders, like the full spectrum, like all different kinds of people. And I was like super excited when I graduated. I wanted to do this brand for real. And I was just like, I don't know, I needed a few more years to really because I was like, nobody's gonna get it. Like nobody's gonna buy it. Like people are like, want it's like non-binary jewelry, So it's really interesting, like when I think back on that time in my life. And it was cool. Some cool people wore it, like Mac Miller wore it and Vogue, and like it was really cute. And from there, and then so like when I started trading, and then to now, it's like so different, like which is great. Like a lot of things are changing.
Yeah, it's definitely evolving. And then I'm just curious, are there any designers that inspired you to lead a genderless brand?
There's not really like designers that inspired me to do a genderless brand. It's more like people, have inspired me. Like, some of my like all-time favorite muses, like Grace Jones, um, Annie Lennox, Prince, like, the icons, obviously. And then also there's a lot of like younger people that have always, like new people that were inspiring me at the beginning, but then like are continuing to like, as I'm still building the brand, like, so like Billie always really inspired me. I love her perspective on clothing. Bretman Rock, I don't know if you guys have heard of Bretman. He is like so TR. Like I love like what he stands for. So yeah, there's like it's more people. It's not really designers.
Got you. I think that's the way to go too, because
Yeah.
it would be a lot more original. But do you have a favorite designer?
Well, sure. I have like a favorite designer just because she's like my mentor. Her name is Francesca Empathiatroff, and she's like the artistic director for Louis Vuitton fine and high jewelry. And I can say that because I worked for her, and she's really amazing. Like amazing storytelling, amazing work ethic, amazing designer. Like wow. And designing jewelry is like a whole other beast. And then, I have a lot of like designers that I respect. Like I really respect Pierre Moss. He just became the creative director of Reebok, which is so cool. So love that. I love Telfar Clemens, and from Telfar, it's obviously like such an OG non-binary brand. And then also, I don't know, you guys maybe haven't heard of this brand. It's a Los Angeles brand called No Cesso, and the designer Pierre, a friend of mine, when I lived in LA, and I really respect him. I love the way his brain works and the way he designs. Like it's really cool. So you guys should check them out. No Cesso.
That sounds so cool. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, you guys should check them out. Like so cool.
What kind of like clothing is it? Like, is it more street or high end?
Yeah, it's like semi couture, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But like you could wear it to the grocery store. It's like this crazy like I don't know. It's like its own thing. It's so good.
That's awesome. So Anna Wintour recently said in an interview that she thinks clothes will become more utility centric and streamlined. Do you think that the pandemic has had any effect on the industry?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. I mean, you're really designing for people to be hanging out at home. So you have to think about that. I mean, I don't think this is like a long-term thing. I mean, I do think it would be really cool if like multifunctional, multi-wear becomes like more of a thing, because for me, I like that's how I shop. I want to be able to like wear it while I'm working and then like wear it out to when I'm DJing. And that's actually how like my 50/50 pant came, was like in LA, I was like styling and doing a lot of costume design, and then at night I would be DJing, and I was always wearing like Dickies. And it was like my favorite pant because I could just do like Dickies with like a little, you know, crop, like little tank. I was gonna say wife beater because it was a wife beater before it was a wife protector. But you know, like that was sort of like my like go-to like work outfit. And then I literally could just leave and go straight to the DJ set, and I looked like, you know, fire. And that's actually where the inspiration came to make the 50-50, because I was like, I love this, but they are just Dickies. Like, let me make them better. So I'm like really into clothing like that. And I really like live in my clothes. So yeah, I hope to see that. Like, you know, nobody needs like a $5,000 like ballroom gown right now, like that. But I think that this is a good place to talk to you guys about, like, or a good opportunity, I suppose, to talk to you guys about what I think is our job as designers today. So if you guys are designers, or if you guys are working with designers, like, I think this is something interesting to think about. You know, like today in 2020, like we are not reinventing the wheel, right? Like everything's been made. Hoodies been made, a sweater's been made, the white t-shirts been made, the jeans have been made, things have been made, right? So as I'm sure there's like more room for new things with technology, like 3D printing, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the real focus today is asking ourselves, like, if things have been made in the right way, and redefining the social constructs of a product. So for example, like taking the wife beater, you know, and making it into the wife protector. Like the wife beater, like that doesn't work today. This product exists, but the product as it exists doesn't work today. How can we make it better? Like taking, you know, nylon athletic wear, saying, okay, nylon, like stretchy Lululemon pants, whatever. This exists, and this is a good product, so we like this, but like, why are we using nylon that's not like sustainable? Why are we not buying things from landfills, making filament? Like, why are we, like, what are we doing? You know, that's what we need to be thinking about right now. Or that's what I think we need to be thinking about currently, like more than like utility centric or streamlined.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of older designers are, again, a bit out of touch. So yeah, as young designers, I definitely think that's the responsibility, is to, you know, fix things in society with your art.
Agreed.
So I think we have time for like a few more questions. So yeah, so if you were just to tell somebody about Très Rasche, how would you describe it?
I don't know why this is like a really hard question for me. I mean, I would just say that Très Rasche is an agent of change, and we're a non-binary fashion brand that challenges and pushes boundaries to redefine design for future generations. Something like that.
Very nicely put. So I'm gonna like jump down to question 17. What is the Circular Life program, and why is it important for fashion?
So the Circular Life program is my new project and initiative to become a fully circular business. And if you don't know what that means, just think of a circle. And here is where you like start to make a product. This is like, you're making it, you're doing the thing, you're selling it, someone's wearing it. And then like, right, then usually when someone's done wearing it, maybe it goes into like a thrift shop, or maybe it goes into a landfill. So the whole point of like a circular economy, or a circular business, is that like that product could decompose, or it can go back to the factory and be remade into something else, you know, or it can like if you're using regenerative nylon or something, it's going back there and it's being like chopped and turned into filament. Like, you know, we need to be making products, not just in fashion, but we need to be making products that are like regenerative. This is a huge problem. Mm-hmm. And I had so much time to myself in quarantine, you know, like living in Paris, no family over here, that I really like focused on this. And I was like, you know, I've always, you know, been interested in sustainability. And I was like, you know, my brand's new. I have the opportunity to set this up. Because sometimes brands like, oh, we can't do certain sustainable things because we already have systems in place, and like it'll be millions of dollars to change them. Well, my systems are like not really in place, you know, this is a new business. So I'm like, let's do this. So basically it's just a 10-year plan that I've made. And each year we have like, you know, goals that we need to achieve to start building the business in this way. And like, for example, this year, the first one was to create a program where all of our backstock gets donated to women's and homeless shelters. So we're partnering with them to do like, you know, to help them out. And also to like, not like in fashion, like people like big brands, they burn their stock, they do crazy things. So it's like, why are we doing that, you know? So, and then like to expand on like post corona, like, you know, we would love to like have a program where like you can send it back, like we'll send you a shipping label, you can send it back, and then we will donate it, you know? Or if it's like made of like a fabric that like can be reused, you know, like we want to put a system like that in place. So we started that, and we partnered with the Women's Shelter of Long Beach, which was super cool. They're like for like domestic abuse, etc. And then the other thing is that I wanted to find a factory that did sustainable packaging, which done, we got it. So that was really cool. So, and then next year, you know, we're focusing on materials and our fabrics, and, you know, we're just like biting off one fabric at a time. Let's find the sustainable option. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm hoping that in 10 years, we can be circular. Like if you guys are more interested in that, look at Stella McCartney. She's like fully circular.
No, that's so cool. And that's kind of a misconception about sustainable fashion, is that when you donate your clothes, and especially like to Goodwill, they don't always like, I'm pretty sure they just throw out whatever they don't sell into a landfill.
Most likely.
Yeah, like
there's no better way to do it right now, you know?
Yeah, one of our previous presidents, her whole thing is sustainability and sustainable fashion. And she just like totally advocates for the circular economy. And that's like, I just think there needs to be more awareness about it. And I think that's so cool that you're doing that.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, so as we've kind of talked about, fashion and culture have always gone hand in hand. And in order for a fashion brand to be successful, they just have to have a cultural message behind it. So aside from, you know, the circular life program and gender equality or non-binary fashion, what has Rasche done in terms of spreading important cultural dialogues? And yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, the whole brand is about social issues. I remember like once in college, one of my friends was like, are you sure you should be a designer? Like maybe you should like work in like social care or something. And I was always just like, okay.
You're both.
I'm doing both, you know. It's a big passion of mine, and it always has been. So like if I was to give you an example, I did just start this program with my assistant designer, her name's Brianna, and it's called Think Forward. So basically her and I together are researching about things in like current issues, and we are doing a lot of research, and then we're sharing it with the TR community. We've done two. The first one was about understanding white privilege and knowing like how to use it for like the better. And then the next one was about voting. And like, for example, with the first one, we did like, we raised money for a charity. Like we did like percentage of sales went to a charity that month. We, you know, shared a bunch of really important information, et cetera, et cetera. We like let people know where they can donate, whether it's like to defund the police, like Black Lives Matter, et cetera. And then for the voting one, we just compiled like a lot of important information about like, you know, mail-in ballot deadlines, like what's happening with USPS, like all this kinds of stuff. So it started with me just wanting to make sure that like my team was educated. And then I was like, we need to make sure that our community is educated. So, and then the next one, I think we've been talking about doing about like defunding the police to really like understand, because there's so much like fake news. There's so much like, everything's so confusing, and like things are sometimes worded wrong, like defunding the police is like, defund is like really doesn't explain what it's really doing. I don't know. So that's like what we are currently focusing on as far as like, you know, important cultural, social messages. Yeah.
That's dope. I love that.
It's all right, cool. You know, it's not getting a lot of traction though. I'm like, man, I felt like Think Forward, people would be like, you know, but maybe our community is just already like so well educated, which
I just think there's such an oversaturation of stuff on the internet that it could just be that people just, you know.
It's true.
So you got a few questions in the chat. If you guys want to like just ask her, you can unmute yourself, but I can go, I'll just like, let's see. So we have, what is your next project? That's from your mom.
Okay, next question. Mom, love you.
Phil, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so I was coming up with a different question to put in the chat, but As a gender inclusive brand, do you find it hard to get different collaborations with other people and brands? How challenging can that be? And what
It's
roadblocks like come up with that?
and what? Sorry, say that last part. What?
Like, what types of roadblocks do you see when trying to come up with those collaborations?
Well, the main thing I think. Well, okay, we're like super blessed because like we had Reebok approach us and we like weren't interested in non-binary, so that was just like fell out of the sky, and we're just like, oh my god. But I think if we didn't have that and we were like trying to approach them, like they would have to be interested in like non-binary, which is like hard. Like this is not something because like people are looking at numbers and they're looking at like, you know, the people in charge of looking at numbers, looking at who's going to buy it, how they're going to buy it, you know, and like if you're not selling like directly to this woman demographic between this age and this age that like drives this car and does this, like they're like, we don't know what to do with this, you know?
Mhm.
So I think that the first roadblock is just like, I think the main roadblock is that like the systems are not in place for like non-binary fashion right now, as far as like on a bigger level. So yeah, I would say it's like really, really complicated. And I'm just realizing like how grateful I should be about this amazing collaboration we have with Reebok, because that could have been so much harder, you know, like if we were trying to approach like Nike or someone and they were like, and I mean, obviously we didn't do this and they didn't say this, but if, you know, they were just like, we don't do this, you know, which I think is a really common thing. But I haven't actually approached that many people about collaborations, to be totally honest with you.
It'd be interesting to see what type of people, you know, would be down for collaboration. What type of things would come out of that?
Yeah, because like I'm like not interested in only collaborating with like non-binary businesses. Like, you know, I'm interested in collaborating with all kinds of businesses. And I think that's really where you make something really beautiful. Like when you have two things that, you know, aren't the same or that don't have the same opinion. Like that's where there's growth,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly those things.
Yeah. You get it. You get it, Philip.
I have a
Oh,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Are you in Italy?
Oh no, I wish it was just the background.
I know.
I interned at Zara in Spain, and um, because you're talking a lot about sustainability, and I brought that up, and they said it's better to think forward instead think of fashion and technology. I don't know how to explain it, but basically you've heard of quantum technology. Basically take the fabrics and break them down, and instead of like have people recycle them, break them down and then create something new, because people are really into fast fashion, so it's better to think in that direction. And then they said if you're thinking more sustainability, you're moving forward, I mean backwards. I was wondering, what do you think about that?
Well, but I think that sustainability is, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's you're saying that they were saying like to take the clothing that people are done with and then like being able to like, for example, shred it, make it into filament and reweave
Yeah,
fabric, right?
yeah.
That is sustainable. That is sustainable. That's like a sustainable way to do business. So yeah, does Zara do that?
No, they were thinking of something about quantum technology. I'm not really, that's not my area of expertise. I don't even know the right word to use.
This doesn't really, like to my knowledge, this doesn't exist. Like I've been working with a company that does buy it's called EcoNail. You guys should check it out. It's called EcoNail, and they buy plastic from landfills, and then they you know, they cut it, chop it, shred it, they turn it into filament like yarn, and then they weave nylon. Okay, and this is literally like, it feels like the same as like any yoga pant fabric, right? And they have like, you know, like stretchy materials, and they also have wovens, like, you know, think like blazer fabric or something. But basically, like, you know, they weave, or they make the filament, and then they sell it to fabric suppliers, and fabric suppliers weave different fabrics. And then I've been like speaking with some different people trying to figure out like, okay, what happens after though? And I think that we're not really there yet from what I found so far. I'm hoping that like I find this, but at this point, what I've learned is that then to like take the clothing and then send it back to them and then create a new fabric. It's not quite there yet, but it is something that people are talking about. So yeah, I think it's sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a sustainable way of working. Yeah.
Hi, I had a question. So I feel like, let me introduce. I'm Kaden. I'm the VP, but so someone who like identifies as non-binary, I feel like I've seen a lot of like changes just in this year, just because everyone's in quarantine right now, so everyone's away from all these like social structures in society of how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to present. And I feel like I've seen an increase in like people just coming to terms with their gender expression, their gender identity. Realizing like, okay, actually, really, I'm not what I, was born, or I'm not what people say I am. So I wonder, like, have you seen that change, and like, how is it influencing or impacting your brand? Like, whether not even just like the designs, but like using like your brand, your platform as like, a space, as like a community, like for people to come to feel safe, all that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I agree. I've fully seen this. And I've seen it on both ways. I've seen people that are like, wow, I'm like really like learning that like, I identify in a new way. And then I'm seeing like friends who are like, oh, I've been identifying as this for so long, but what I'm really realizing is that I'm both. And like today I want to like wear lipstick and a bra, and then tomorrow I'm going to wear like baggy pants and like a big tee and like a snapback, which I think is so cool. And I'm like loving this because I remember when I was working with on my like jewelry brand when I was in college, I was working with this model named Kaylee, and she was trans, and I remember her like really going through the process of trying to figure out like what she wanted to do, and the most beautiful thing that she said to me one day was, she's like, I woke up this morning and I realized that being trans to me is being both. And I thought it was like so nice, like we need, like, I mean, obviously everyone's, has a different situation and different, self-identification and stuff, but that was how Kaylee was viewing it. And I think that right now during quarantine, like we're like really alone and we're really like focusing inward. And I know for myself, I've came to so many like self-realizations throughout this, and I've never felt more like confident in who I am and where I'm going and what I like and what I don't like. So I agree. I think that even though it feels like 2020 is a giant mess, I feel like it's 10 steps backwards to take like 50 steps forward. And yeah, I have seen a large increase in people like loving Rasche even more, like I feel like this time is like giving people the opportunity to like understand like gender more, to understand everything more. And I'm even speaking with like some retailers and stuff, and like even the way that they're talking to me, like I'm like, whoa, like 3 years ago, like you wouldn't even answer an email, and now you guys are starting to get this. So I think overall it's like there's a big like wave happening. Do you feel like that too?
I really do feel like that. And it's not even because like, and I'm not saying like it's a new thing this year, because non-binary, like all that, it's been like from the beginning of time. There's so many like indigenous people that they used to do that, but as colonization comes in and all that, we were forced into these like roles. And but I love what you said about the trans thing, because that's something too. I feel like a lot of people are finally like, it's finally like snapping people's head, like trans isn't one thing. Like trans is so many different things. You don't have to be one way to be trans. Like I don't know, I feel like that's really beautiful that you said that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And like, I feel that in my own personal way, like as a woman, I mean, it wasn't like you're talking about indigenous people, like women before, like, way back, like a long time ago, like we weren't like less, we used to bring like what, like 80% of like the meal home. So we were like the breadwinner, like, women's sexuality wasn't like, hindered, like all these things. And then, we went through like the Industrial Revolution, and like all these things happened. And like, as women are like going back to work in like the 2000s, like I'm saying going back to work, like women, there was like this weird section in time where like we were like these like perfect wives. And like, so for me, like I've had to go through so much to like understand like my femininity. And like have had to like overcome so much like internal fear of like being like, okay, because I'm a woman, am I gonna like not be able to like reach my full potential, you know? And so do I need to sort of dim down my femininity so that I'm taken more serious? So I think everyone experiences this in like their own way, you know? And like through quarantine, that was something that I think maybe it's also why I live in Paris now. It's like really feminine. But that's something that I've really been coming to terms with, is that like my strength and my femininity, you know? So yeah, I love this question. Thank you.
You.
First of all, I'd like to say, sorry, can I ask one more question? Is there enough time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
First, I'd like to say I love everything you stand for. This is just a fantastic experience. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
No problem.
And also tapping back into that masculinity you were talking about at the beginning, kind of piggybacking off of the same content of that last question. Do you think it's important as a business to outwardly represent and like publicly support the LGBTQ plus community as a company that is a pioneer, like champions of this non-binary format and business plan?
Absolutely.
That
100%.
I feel like you touched on it a bit, but I really appreciate your consideration for sustainability. I'm a part of that major, so it was really nice to hear like a person in fashion speak on that. Anyway, yes, the rest of that question.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think like absolutely. Like typically when we're like looking into doing like charities, we are teaming up a lot with like the last one we did was with the Oprah Foundation, and they basically go into homes of like in the trans community, and they cook them dinner and they like help them find jobs. They're in New York. They're really cool. So yeah, I think it's like super important. And then not just that, like within our team, the models that we choose, like, you know, we definitely support.
Do you think you'd ever use your platform to, I don't want to say like condemn, but like, you know, really be like a strong like rod in this like revolution in this like time to be like an avid supporter for the community? Like, do you feel like you use that platform effectively?
I think so. I really think that we do. I really think that we do. And I also think that personally, like on my personal platform, I'm like really big into like a lot of different, you know, things in this section, not just for LGBTQ. But yeah, I think so. But you know what? I think we could probably do it more. So thank you for this question.
So I'm just gonna there's some people that asked this question in the chat, and I think everyone here wants to hear the answer to this, but just what is your biggest piece of advice for young people to be successful in the fashion industry?
Awesome. This is such a good question. I think the first thing is to work hard. Period. If you want to be good at something, you need to do it for over 10,000 hours. Like that is how I learned how to draw. I literally did it for 10,000. I wasn't good at it, but like I wasn't bad at it, but like, you know, I wasn't like amazing at it. It took time. And just because you're not great at one part of something, it doesn't mean that you can't learn. And you need to work harder than everyone. This is how, like, this is a huge, huge, huge part of this. Like, nothing comes easy in like the creative world. It's a lot of work. So that's number one. And I think number two is staying true to yourself. You know, I think right now, like there's so much imagery online. It's so easy to like subconsciously actually just like be doing things that you see, you know, because you're just like shoved like image, like constantly. And so I like recommend like logging off, you know, reading a book, going to the library, finding inspiration in different ways, you know, and like not doing things just because you see them that they're trending online, you know, like that's like not how to stick out. That's how to, you know, fit in. So yeah, I would say that.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep you guys too long, so I'm just going to stay on a little bit if you have any questions, but yeah, thank you so much, Madisen. That was amazing. Literally such a great discussion. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and you're doing amazing things. I'm rooting for you. So
Thank you guys. Like, thank you so much for being here and like wanting to hear what I have to say. And you guys feel free to DM me or DM Rasche if you ever have any questions about anything. And yeah, I wish you guys all the best. Take care of Arizona. Be the change we want to see there. Please vote. Please vote. I'm begging you. And yeah, have a great day.
you too.
Bye.